Welcome to Season 2 of Public Health on Call, a podcast from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. I'm Joshua Sharfstein, Vice Dean for Public Health Practice and Community Engagement, and a former Secretary of Maryland's Health Department. Our goal is to bring scientific evidence and experience to the public health news of the day through informative interviews with scientists, community leaders, policy experts, public health officials, clinicians, and more. If you have ideas or questions for us to cover, please email us at publichealthquestion@jhu.edu. That's publichealthquestion@jhu.edu for future podcast episodes. Today, Johns Hopkins clinical psychologist Laura Murray is back with Stephanie Desmond to answer your mental health questions. This time, they talk about how incredibly stressful 2020 has been and how to take stock of your feelings as the pandemic continues and other difficult situations unfold on top of it. Let's listen.
Laura Murray, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie. It's great to be here again.
So let's talk about 2020. It has really thrown a lot of punches. I mean, we've had obviously this COVID pandemic, which it's 6 months long and going strong. We've had police killings. We've had terrible fires. You're in Houston where it's pouring rain in the middle of a tropical storm. The election's coming up. We're all stressed out, and yet it feels like nothing is coming to a head. How can we deal with all of this?
Yeah, it's such a great question, Stephanie. And I know a lot of people who listen to us are probably wondering, when is 2020 going to end? It just keeps coming. And so many people have dealt with so many different things this year already. A few things, some people are talking about how they're almost acclimated to it. It's sort of like, oh, it's just another thing. And then a lot of other people are talking about how it feels like extra weight. Every little thing that's happening in 2020 is just sort of additional weight. So one of the things is really just to try to normalize those feelings. They are stressors, and it's a normal human reaction from stress to feel stressed, to be anxious about certain things, to sort of feel frustrated, like, it's another thing. So we talk a lot about giving yourself and others just some grace and understanding that a lot of what you and I might be experiencing is really just a normal human reaction to stress. And so just recognizing that sometimes is just really helpful. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just a reaction. I think the one clause I would put on that, Stephanie, is that we do want to be mindful of recognizing signs that may indicate that we need some additional help, that it's moving beyond sort of a normal reaction. And I think that's really important. And so if you're noticing, okay, I'm really having trouble functioning, I'm really having trouble managing kids or my relationships, I'm not sleeping, those are times to reach out and sort of say, okay, I'm not able to handle the stress, so who can I reach out to? And I always really encourage every one of us, reach out to others and just ask. I think it really helps to sort of normalize and talk about the stressors and the frustrations. And that also helps us identify in our friends and family who might be at that point where they need a little extra help.
Mm-hmm. I'm really glad you pointed that out, because I was thinking, yes, it's normal to feel extra stressed out, but there is a moment when you might need something more.
Absolutely.
So something that's going on right now is the start of school, right? September, even August has meant a lot of kids have gone back to school, or a lot of kids have stayed home from school because their schools are all virtual.
Right.
This is a really, really hard time for kids and parents and teachers to adjust to this new normal. What kind of advice can we give to all of the above?
Yeah, this is a different time this fall that we're all sort of managing. And so I'd like to just break it down a little bit, right? So we have kids, we have parents or caregivers, and then we have teachers. So, kids, as you were mentioning, some are stuck in rooms all day by themselves, and that's really not a natural place for them to be. And other kids, of course, that you mentioned might be in school, maybe there's other fears or challenges with sort of wearing masks or not able to be close to friends. So one of the things with kids is really keeping those lines of communication open, talking to them. If you have a kid who's at home learning, check in with them, make sure they've got some interaction. I've seen a lot of cute things where with the younger kids, people actually get their bike up on stationary things. So they're riding a bike while they're listening to kindergarten music. And, I think it's just becoming a little bit more creative in how do we get them to have a social outlet if they are at home? And then how do we open the lines of communication about fear of what might be going on in school, or just allowing them to be able to say, it's really not fun having lunch with only one person that I don't really like and we're 6 feet apart, and we have to put our mask on right away. So I think that's really important just to recognize all that. Caregivers and parents, wow. I mean, we've probably heard the gamut on this one, right? Some are struggling with younger ones who are trying to learn to read on a virtual program. And boy, is that tough for parents. And then, of course, they have breaks and they're wanting food and lunch and all sorts of things while parents are trying to do other things. So again, I think a little recognition of fatigue, talking to other people, and really trying to open up our minds to creativity and how can we manage these new normals in the fall. Teachers, wow. Limited time, really, really, for those of us who have done webinars, hard to track people online, right? Especially kids. And so teachers are dealing with a whole new thing also. And of course, some teachers are in person, so they have a whole nother fear level. So I think really being honest, what are we saying to ourselves? Is it fatigue? Can we add in different thoughts of, I'm really doing the best that I can. And this is sort of what everyone's going through.
Mm-hmm. It's hard though, right? You say, well, this is what everyone's going through, but you really feel the pressure. I mean, I've got kids, I know you do. That my kids are virtual, and I know that they would probably gain a lot more if they were in school, but obviously we've decided that it's not safe enough for them to go to school as a community. And so I guess there's sort of that whole element to it as well.
Absolutely. And it's not to diminish what we're all going through. It's to recognize it. We sort of come back to that self-awareness, right? We don't want to be running from it. We want to recognize this is uncomfortable, this isn't ideal, and have those conversations with your friends, with your loved ones, with your kids, for sure, just to acknowledge it and be aware of it. And that opens up to, how are we looking at this? Are we looking at it through a negative lens of this is, awful and my life is never going to be the same sort of thing? Or are we looking at it as, this is not ideal for right now. How could we maybe make it better? Maybe we need to problem solve some things, or maybe we need to try to be a little bit more positive or focused, or have sort of more break time. So really try to look at the situation through some different lenses.
Mm-hmm. This makes me think of another question. And so a lot of your work and mine is in lower resource countries. What we are describing here in many ways is, we toss it off as sort of first world problems. There's some very similar things going on in these other countries. In a lot of ways, they're worse, and they have a lot fewer resources to use. I'm curious your take.
Yeah, such an interesting question, and so many have a heart for people that are in low and middle income countries and sort of suffering in different ways. And I know you and I were speaking earlier about some of our work in Lebanon, where they've been hit with a refugee crisis and a government crisis and economic crisis, and of course the bombing and COVID on top of all of that, and just really have so much going on. I think that there's a way psychologically that can help us when we have perspective that's a little bit more global. So there's actually a skill we teach people, sort of instead of focusing on, oh gosh, this is really hard, or this is a tough situation. And it is, to say, at least it's not this, or, gosh, it could be worse. And that's a psychological skill that human beings can use to sort of just gain a little bit of perspective on what we're going through. That can be a little bit helpful. Now, I say that very much realizing that, again, these feelings are legitimate of what we're going through of the stress of COVID and everything else we started talking about in this podcast. So it's not to say that these feelings aren't legitimate. It's really to talk about how can we learn to manage them so that we can be productive. And sometimes having perspective that's a little bit more global of what other people might be going through can be helpful.
Mm-hmm. I want to switch gears a little bit. Not only are we in school, we're headed toward colder months and colder weather, and winter's coming. And that means being inside a lot more. And of course, all we've been told is that being inside is, we're not safe inside if we're not at home, right? So how do we sort of deal with the fact knowing that, gosh, we're going to be inside for a long time coming. And maybe the fact that I know some people like me have kept sane by walking every single day, long walks, it may not be as possible in the colder weather months.
Great question. And something that a lot of people are bracing for sure. This makes me think, Stephanie, of something that we talk a lot about, which is a growth mindset. And what we know about mindsets is that they really change our perspective. So every stressor, every event, for example, it getting cold out, not being able to exercise, many of the other things we've already talked about in this podcast, school and virtual learning, can be seen as a problem or a challenge. It can also be seen as an opportunity for growth. What's the lesson in here? How can I grow through this? How can I become better, more intelligent, more creative? And one of the things we know is that if we can get ourselves to more of a growth mindset, if we can choose and go through that process of really trying to look at challenges and obstacles as an opportunity, we're going to be feeling a lot better and usually functioning a lot better. So to bring it back to sort of the cold weather, instead of focusing on, oh gosh, here we go into 4 or 5, for some of us, 6 months of very, very cold weather, how can we see this as an opportunity to maybe be a little bit more creative, or maybe just say, you know what, I'm just going to learn how to walk in boots and knee-high snow. And here we go. It's going to be something new for me. And I know it's not a perfect answer. And a lot of you are probably thinking, oh, this does not sound like a good idea. But growth mindset, we are learning more and more about, and just how important it is.
Mm-hmm. So really sort of just reframing these, all of these issues in a more positive light. Is that a general gist of what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In a more positive light, but really as an opportunity to, how do we evolve as humans? How do we become more aware, more intelligent, more creative, more sort of viewing it as a process towards something?
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. I guess it's a better way to look at things than, oh my gosh, we're going to be stuck inside for 6 months, right? Laura Murray, thank you so much for being with me.
Thanks so much for having me, Stephanie.
Public Health on Call is produced by Joshua Sharfstein, Lindsay Smith-Rogers, Stephanie Desmond, and Lamari Morales. Audio production by Spencer Greer, Niall Owen McCusker, Cian Oates, and Matthew Martin, with support from Chip Hickey. Distribution by Nick Moran. Thank you for listening.